It's like 20 or 30 times the amount of capital that goes to non-Black, non-Latino founders in the US.
Hello, everyone. Good morning and welcome to the Afrofuture Summit. It's truly an honor to gather here with visionary researchers yourselves for this fifth annual Afrofuture Summit. And a warm welcome to you to this fifth edition of this summit. And as we embark on today's journey, we'll explore certain thematic areas relating to the theme. This year's theme is navigating innovation, sustainability, and inclusivity. And it speaks to the critical crossroads that we find ourselves in today, where we see rapid technology advancements, sustainability imperatives, and the need for greater inclusivity, demand, and bold action, as well as forward-thinking solutions. So we'll explore thematic areas around this with the panels that we have and then the keynotes that we have lined up as well. It's a pleasure to welcome you once again to this summit for its fifth edition. We'll take a recap video from the Afrofuture Summit World Gala and then we'll get back to it.
Welcome everyone to the Afrofuture Summit Awards Gala. Really an honor and pleasure to kick this off.
And you're going to be the people who are going to be here the day after tomorrow. So all of us must continue to bring good into the world and let no good be lost. God bless you all.
My name is Kristen and Tim. I'm the founder and CEO of Global Startup Ecosystem and the chair of the Afrofuture Summit. And thank you so much for being here. I can't begin to tell you how amazing these influences are that we're about to kick off and honor.
I want us all to put our heart into all that we do. Let's try and drive the conversation about Black history and into the Black future. Let's make sure our diaspora connect back to the continent, and let's really put our heart into actually building a better future for all of us. Thank you all very much for coming here today. Let's have a great night of networking and get to know each other on a much deeper level.
The way that I think about Afrofuturism is the world in which Blackness is returned to greatness at its full value.
Office of the President, but I just want to say how pleased I am that you've given us this platform.
I am working to ensure that we build smart futures and flourishing worlds for all humanity.
of you for being a part of the Afro Future Summit Awards Gala 2023.
Welcome back to the summit. My name is Daniel Tete, and I'll be your host for the session today. So this is in its fifth year, and we are glad we could come your way with it, and we're welcoming the speakers as we go along for today's session. We are grateful to all our partners and sponsors and the team that made this happen today. This is an initiative that is hosted by the Global Startup Ecosystem in partnership with Google Cloud, IBM Cloud, AWS, Microsoft, and HubSpot, and many more. And it's live on our YouTube channels as well. So the theme for this year is navigating innovation, sustainability, and inclusivity. And that's what is going to determine some of the thematic areas that we hear from our keynotes and panels that we have for the session today. So we look forward to the discussions that we have lined up for today. And we would be going on shortly before that, but we would have a welcome remarks as well later on, and then also go through some of the areas, and then looking to a throwback to some of the events we've had previously. So welcome once again, and tell us where you're joining in from. So this is the GSC Summit roadmap, and as you know, Global Startup Ecosystem holds these annual tech summits around the world, including the Afro Future Summits, and it's geared towards achieving some sustainable development goals. And we are guided by three main pillars that includes entrepreneurship and empowerment and education, and these gears towards the activities that we run here at the Global Startup Ecosystem. Our objectives include inspiration and innovation, impact and identity. That's celebrating Black excellence and achieving achievements, also showcasing and building awareness on phenomenal accomplishments of the Black community, accelerating solutions via technology to solve global grand problems and impacts. We look at leveraging talent and technology to tackle problems centered around poverty, education, health, water, education, and more. Also look at identity that looks at reconnecting and reviving Black identity by bridging the gap between Black descendants, the global Black diaspora, and the African continent. And where we've been to in previous editions, we've had the World Scala at the Forbes Fifth Avenue headquarters, as well as the ecosystem engagement tour with the at Hudson Yards, also with the LinkedIn building as well, all in New York. So we've been having in-person as well as virtual events. And the Afro Future Summit is the world's most iconic summit that curates an active network of Afro investors, tech entrepreneurs, celebrities, politicians, and business moguls. Each year, the program gathers thousands of pioneers from around the world to address and tackle challenges that affect Afro future. The summit serves as a platform for influencers who are sourcing innovative solutions and partners that leverage exponential technology to accelerate Afro as well as world's final tech frontier. We are thankful to all our speakers that have come in over the years. We're grateful for their thought leadership and their time, commitment to the cause. Grateful to all of them, and we've seen some return speakers as well as some new speakers that will be announcing for the session today. So once again, welcome to this iconic summit in its fifth annual edition. Before we transition to our our next speaker. We'll take a brief break and then welcome our next speaker on.
Strengthening communities of color is something P&G cares about. It's a key element of our commitment we have made to serve as both a force for good and a force for growth around the world.
Economic development and equity and inclusion, we can use the exact same definition to define what we want or what we are intentional about with respect to both.
That systemically create a gap between career advancement and fulfillment of individuals of the same abilities, but different skin colors.
And in terms of funding, the gap is even bigger. It's like 20 or 30 times the amount of capital that goes to non-Black, non-Latino founders in the US.
Okay, welcome back. And we are thankful for this year. We have an exciting lineup of speakers that we have scheduled for today. And it's my pleasure to welcome our very first keynote speaker for today in the person of Dr. Lisa Coleman, who is the president of the Elder University. It's a pleasure to welcome her to the 5th Annual Afro Future Summit. Welcome.
Hello. Hello, thank you so
Hello.
much for welcoming me. It's a pleasure to be here. And as always, it's a pleasure to be part of the global startup ecosystem events. And so I'm so happy to be here with you all today.
Okay, it's a pleasure always having you on. I'll leave it to you now.
Great, thank you so much. So hello, everyone. Normally, I would present a very large slide deck, as I like to do sometimes, but this time I'm going to forego the slides. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the challenges, of course, that we're facing, how we navigate them, how we engage innovation, and also how we think about sustaining our work. So to begin, I'm going to talk a little bit about myself, the work that I do and what I've been doing, not just at Adler, but prior to Adler. And then right after that, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the ways in which I think we can use partnerships and that kind of work to really begin to lean into innovation and sustainability. Again, thanks for being here, and I hope everyone is taking very good care out there. I know these are very challenging times for lots of people globally, and so I want to recognize that at the top of this talk. So first, let me just say, I am currently the president of Adler University. Adler University is located in Chicago, Illinois, as well as Vancouver, British Columbia. So we're located in both countries. I have about 600 or 700 students in Vancouver, and then I have about 1,100 students in Chicago. The university focuses primarily on issues that have to do with health equity, mental health, and providing systemic interventions into what may have been thought of as sort of traditional health systems. And I will come back to that in a little bit when I talk about some of the work that we're doing to really think about equity, inclusion, and of course, really think about these ideas of innovation and sustainability. Prior to Adler University, I was the Senior Vice President for Global Inclusion and Strategic Innovation, so it was woven into my title, at New York University. And New York University, I worked at New York University, but I also worked in Abu Dhabi, Shanghai, the 2 portal campuses that NYU has, as well as 15 other global sites around the world. And that's everywhere from Paris to Australia. Actually did quite a bit of work in New Zealand and have served on the New Zealand Education Board, as well as work, as I said, in Europe, and then, of course, in the continent of Africa and across the Caribbean. And prior to that, I won't go through my entire career, but this is relevant for the conversation because I'll be using some examples from these institutions. And prior to that, I was at an institution called Harvard University, which is located in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And there, I served as the special assistant to the president and the first senior chief diversity officer at that institution. So lots of experience in this world of inclusion, equity, and thinking about how we innovate in these spaces. So let me begin by just talking a little bit about what I mean by innovation. And so there are all types of innovation. There's radical innovation. There is incremental innovation. And I'm going to really talk about 2 types, right? The kind of building incremental, and then also I'm going to talk about radical innovation. And I'm going to give 2 different examples. So when we think about innovation, I think it's important for persons such as myself, because I'm in the higher education space. So part of what we're doing is producing research, producing the knowledge that many organizations will use. You can think here of the Harvard Business Review or the presses that higher education uses. And then, of course, that to which people refer. So what I'm always interested in is how can we build on the work that's being done in higher education, and how do we advance that work so that it's practical and applicable in the real world? And that is one of the reasons I'm so happy to be working at Adler University. But before I get there, let me give you a concrete example of a kind of innovative practice that we did when I was at Harvard University. So at Harvard, we were working on an initiative to provide access to people with disabilities. And many of you may know that people of color who have disabilities are often disenfranchised at greater rates, sometimes up to 200% when we look at the National Organization of Disability data. And it can even go up to as much as 400%. So as we began to think about equitable services for people with disabilities, one of the things that I did quickly was realize that people were walking around and they had maps in their hands. Well, this is the old days. And so I walked over to an engineering class and I said to the professor and to the students in that class, do you think you could help me? I would like to create something that would be more beneficial for people with disabilities than having to pick up a map. Some people can't pick up a map. Some people don't have access to, they may have to roll a wheelchair, which even if they could hold the map, right, then they wouldn't be able to do that. And so not to mention the cognitive kind of challenges and differences in reading maps. And so the engineering class came together, about 15 students in that class, and they came up and developed the first app, and APP. And that app was then put on the Harvard website so that students, faculty, and staff could then use the app. And one, I think, of the lessons that we learned during this project is that not only can you provide equitable services for one group, but when you do so, it provides services for a greater and larger number of people. So this application allowed people to have greater access to all kinds of things across campus because they were able to right, use this technology. And so when I think about the kind of work that corporations and the ways in which we can engage, I also think about partnerships that can expand this kind of work. So now I'm going to go into the entrepreneurial space and take us to my work at New York University, where we partnered with a number of, yes, industry organizations to create new kinds of technologies such as virtual reality, immersive reality, and projects that allowed our students, faculty, and staff to engage in all kinds of new learning opportunities. So let me take this to the corporate space. One of the reasons that we were able to partner with corporations and do this work is corporations, as I said, are very interested in the kind of work that's around how do you have a productive workforce? What is the future of the workforce going to look like? And we know there are lots of challenges in the workforce, but if you can develop the technologies that actually allow people to work better together, to think about partnerships, and to experience things that are different than their own. So in this experiment that we began to explore, and now exploring even more at my current institution, is how might we use virtual AI, artificial intelligence, and VR realities to immerse individuals. And there's a great organization called Praxis Labs that's been doing some of this work into situations that are different than their own, so that you can experience, or at least begin to develop empathy into situations that are different than your own. And what we know about empathy is that empathy leads to greater understandings and greater design processes. The design thinking model starts with empathy and then leads to the process of iteration and, of course, to pilots and to testing different methodologies. And the best of innovation utilizes and catalyzes the kind of empathy and leaning into communities to learn. So if we go back to my example about people with disabilities, what we learned was that we could provide greater access if we listened, we learned to the various constituencies. Now, let me fast forward because, I am an academic, so I can ramble on, but let me fast forward to my current role at Adler University. I'm very excited to be at Adler, and it's a wonderful institution. And as I said earlier, we are at the intersection of health equity and higher education. So bringing together, these systems and trying to think about how do we provide equitable access across health systems, and particularly as it pertains to mental health. As we know globally, many, many people struggle with mental health. And when I'm talking about mental health, I want to be very clear here. I mean everything from your everyday kind of stress to, the kind of mental health that might cause may have the need for increased interventions. But what we also know about people of color globally is that misdiagnoses can go as great as up to 600% of misdiagnoses of people of color. All kinds of misdiagnoses, and quite frankly, we know the relationship between mental health, mental illness, and the criminalization, particularly of people of African descent. And working at Adler, this has allowed us to reimagine a number of things. And so I'm going to talk about two projects that we've done. One is we've created a simulation, and this is for people who have gone into prison and are trying to re-enter into society. And we've created a simulation that allows people to understand what it's like for people who've had that experience. It is one of the best learning experiences. I have all kinds of individuals all across the world who have told me how great this experience is because it allows them to see something that they would never be able to see, to imagine a possibility and to use innovative technologies to reimagine access. What does it mean to re-enter into a society? And as we know, unfortunately, disproportionately, people of color and people of African descent have this experience of having to deal with the criminal justice system in some sort of way. This has allowed us to explore all kinds of new opportunities and partnerships, and we work with former incarcerated individuals to expand the learning opportunities. So not only is this incremental innovation, but it's radical innovation, and that we are reimagining the space of what it means to talk about prison, what it means to engage reentry systems, and we are also working with prison systems to help them understand how to work with ex-prisoners as well as the systems of government, not to mention mental health systems. Next, I'd just like to talk about one other thing that we're doing, and that's working with guidance counselors and after-school programs. This is some of our work, and we're working with an art school here in Chicago. And this is work to work with guidance counselors because, of course, as we know, schools are a place where lots of emerging generations have all kinds of challenges. And how can we intervene? We can work with global school systems and work with guidance counselors so that they are providing better advice, better systems, better interventions for students K through 12, as well as higher education systems. And lastly, of course, we continue to work with industry to think about workforce development. So the last piece I will mention here, although I think I said the last piece last time, is that we continue to work with our industry programs. One of our biggest and successful programs outside of our scientific doctorate at Adler is also our industrial organization program. And this program allows us to work with industries to think about workforce development and productivity in the workforce. And as we know, there's all kinds of stress in the workforce, unfortunately, and that is impacting individuals at greater capacity and at greater levels. And unfortunately, what we know is that people are taking more time off, vacation, sick time, etc. And so what we're trying to do is really then work with companies through industrial organization, counseling, and to really think about how do you create a workplace that allows individuals to be their most successful in the workplace. And again, integrating AI technologies into this space, not just chat boxes, but also, again, what does it mean to walk in the shoes of someone else in the workplace? So now we're starting to explore virtual reality in this space. What does it mean to be a woman in your workplace? What does it mean to be a woman of color? What does it mean to be a 20-year-old or a 50-year-old? These are the kinds of explorations that I'm so proud that we're able to do at Adler and beyond. I saw a question in the chat, and so I'll answer any questions now. But yes, a simulation for formerly incarcerated is radical. Is AI integrated into it? Yes, that is our next step. So actually, we developed the simulation, and now we're moving into AI and virtual reality. It's a wonderful opportunity, and we have some industry partners and foundation partners who are interested in helping us expand this and build it out to scale. And I didn't say this, but I should say this, is that one of the key ways in which we're able to do our work is through partnership. Partnerships with industry, partnerships with government, partnership with other higher education institutions. And I am very committed to expanding partnerships. I think far too often we think of ourselves as competitors, and we have to engage in multi-sector, multi-dynamic partnerships that allow us to advance new technologies, new ways of doing things. And part of the reason I stay in higher education is it allows me to explore all kinds of new knowledge and the production of knowledge, but I need the partners in industry and government to then think about how do we practically apply this work. And so practical applications of workforce development in industrial organization, practical applications of work with prisons, practical applications and reentry systems, practical applications of working with people who are along various disability spectrums. And we know that 85% of people will experience some kind of disability during the course of their lifetime. And again, right, and then of course, most importantly, ensuring that when we think about these access and equity issues and the disenfranchisement, particularly of people of color and people of African descent globally, that we are intervening in the systems. And that's the prison system, the mental health system, the educational systems. And so if you want to partner with Adler and partner with us, I'm on LinkedIn. You just type in Dr. Lisa Coleman with the PhD and you'll find me. If you type in Lisa Coleman, the other one, you'll get the person who used to be with Prince, the musical person Prince. That's also Lisa Coleman. So you have to type in the PhD. I don't see any other questions. I think I'm out of time. I was told I had 20 minutes, but are there any other questions out there for me? I don't see any questions. Well, let me say this. I really, really love the global startup ecosystem, such great work that they are doing. I hope that you all continue to take very good care. I did not talk so much about navigating these challenging times, but I'll end with this. We have to collectively partner and work together. We have to find new strategies. And I think that the way to do that is through partnership, multi-sector, multi-dynamic partnerships. And I, for one, am ready to lean in. And I also think that we have to think globally. We can no longer think of our silos as isolated in individual countries. And if nothing else that we're learning, the impact of challenges become global. And we know as people of African descent, those global challenges impact us greatly. We can think about USAID and the implications of that. We can think about for Africa, all kinds of countries globally, and the other kinds of impacts that are happening as a result of some of the federal things happening in the United States right now. And I think that the way to navigate, to challenge, to push back is to remain steadfast in our commitments, to remain steadfast in our partnerships. And I exist in Chicago, Illinois, which is a sanctuary state that is pushing back right now. And so again, if you're looking for partners, if you're looking for someone who remains committed to equity, to justice, and to making the world a better place for all people, not just some, come partner with us. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Dr. Coleman. It's always a pleasure having you on here, and thank you so much for your time and your thought leadership today. And we hope to connect in the future as well. Share a lot of amazing insights here that people have taken from. So thank you so much.
Be well. Take care, everyone.
All right. So we had our keynote speaker for today, Dr. Lisa Coleman, president of Adler University, and an amazing session. I'm sure you agree with me. We'll transition to our next session, which is the first panel for the day. And I'll be introducing the moderator who will then kick off the panel discussion. Welcome back. I'll now introduce Lee Ralph Alma, who is a program lead with Representative with Representative Group to moderate the next one. Welcome, Lee.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Can you hear me loud and clear? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for having me today. I'll be moderating today's panel. That's navigating the interactions of innovation, technology, and AI for business growth. And on this panel, we have Avis. And then we have the governor. Hi, Avis. Hi. Welcome.
Hi.
Great. Avis, I think your mic is muted.
It most certainly was. I should know better on a technology panel, right?
Okay.
Thank
Great.
you.
Great to have you all. I'm happy to be part of you to moderate this session. Without wasting my time, we'll dive in right away. I know each of you have unique part. Each of you took a unique part in building your business your business and ventures that you have successfully. So to kickstart, can you share a bit about your journey and what initially inspired you to start your respective companies? Any of you can kickstart.
I'll start us off.
Okay.
So, good morning, everyone. I am so delighted to be here. My name is Avis Yates Rivers. I am the founder and CEO of Technology Concepts Group International. We are a global firm that provides value to our customers in the area of technology, cybersecurity, and procurement and supply chain solutions. When I first started my journey, which happened 40 years ago in the entrepreneurial space, I was in an early career position at Exxon Corporation in New York City, and I was selling early technology in the Wall Street area. Exxon, that same Exxon that eventually merged with Mobil, as you know, is a petroleum company. They call themselves energy companies now. But they had decided to venture into technology by investing in a lot of venture capital projects. Brought them all together, created Exxon Office Systems Company, and then hired a team of salespeople to try and compete with IBM, Xerox, and Wang back then. And I had been at Exxon. That's the only company I've ever worked for. I did 3 of my internships while in college at Exxon, and they hired me upon graduation. But it was that particular opportunity in technology sales that really cemented for me what role I was going to play in life. And here I am 40 years later. When I started my company, it was because Exxon decided to sell that division, wholly owned subsidiary, to a technology firm. And try as I might, I tried to work for this other firm. I lasted 30 days because they needed major account reps like myself, but they didn't know how to nurture a major accounts team. And so we really had 6 months from the time that the story hit that Exxon was divesting itself of that division and the new company starting, that I began the strategy and the plan to go and continue to support those Exxon customers. So it was a very specific goal in mind. I knew that there would be a void in the marketplace. The new company just wanted to rip and replace out the equipment that these customers had invested in. And I knew that would take some time. And there would be a period of time, a few years, where these customers continued to need support. And so I ventured into entrepreneurship, started my first company in January of 1985, and just continued to go with them with the waves of the technology industry. Went into federal government contracting through 8A, came back to corporate where I feel most at home. And today we are providing cybersecurity and IT and procurement solutions to all size corporations. So
Wow.
It's been a journey. Think of all that's happened over the last 40 years.
Yeah.
And I've experienced that. So it hasn't been a straight ride up, but I just felt the whole time that I just needed to keep going. And so thank you, Lord, that I've been able to keep going.
Congratulations for being in business for 40 years.
Thank you. I know I'm only 39, so I'm not sure of the math there. Y'all gonna have to figure that out on your own.
All right, Fiji, can we have you also sharing your experience?
Awesome. I mean, it's so hard to go after a story like that, Avis. You've not made this. You've not made this. Easy on me. They should make sure that the panels are set up so that there's some level of parity amongst the panelists.
I'm afraid of you. I can't wait to hear all about your journey. No, there is parity.
I know what this tech game is like, and the fact that you haven't just endured, but you've built something worthwhile, and you've built something multinational over 40 years is just absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I think us entrepreneurs, we ought to get a medal for every 10 years we survive. Every 10 years we make it and we're still in business. Yes. We ought to get some massive, something shipped to us from the heavens above. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that's just that's a little bit of a precursor into the maybe my some of my thoughts. As a business owner, I was in a very comfortable job. I worked at Microsoft for many years. I was also in the game of sales and marketing. Grew up in South Africa and got my first job with Microsoft in South Africa when Microsoft launched an international college hire program, their first ever program. They hired 2 people from Africa, and I happened to be one of them. And I started getting trained all in all sorts of countries, Europe, the US. Started getting trained in the basics of enterprise technology, and we really started to get into the game of solution sales at the enterprise level. Microsoft at that time was a very different company. It was still a bunch of really teenagers who managed to get it right, and they were trying to build out a true corporate muscle. They wanted to be taken seriously in the boardroom. So we were the first wave of proper, well-groomed salespeople to hit the streets. And so we had to spend a year getting trained. I did that, enjoyed every second of it. Having grown up in moderate, in a very moderate environment, under moderate circumstances as a South African, typical South African. Remember, I grew up in apartheid South Africa, so it was a very different South Africa than we have today. Yeah. And I just looked this young because of my moisturizer. Please do not be fooled. I've got plenty of battle wounds. So anyway, just to speed up my story, or I'll take forever on it. Basically, what happened was I lived this fantastic career at Microsoft, traveled all over, and moved up the ranks through sheer persistence and a deep commitment, an unrelenting commitment to not make my number. It was an impossibility to miss my number. And so I grew within the ranks of the company. I was eventually entrusted with a portfolio of 80 countries across the Middle East and Africa. I led what was called the public sector division for Microsoft, which is basically the area that serves government, education, and healthcare. Mm-hmm. I led that across 80 countries, so it was a sizable portfolio all across the Middle East and Africa. Happened to have been a very politically difficult area, a zone of the world that was, and I think still is, strewn with conflict. And I led the public sector organization through quite an interesting period. And at some point, I just decided, just like that, I'm gonna exit this game, and I'm gonna go and build a company of my own. And interestingly, I decided to go over to the US for a bit. So I moved over for a couple of years to Florida, as luck would have it. And I lived there, got into the entrepreneurial game, played around with the company, and I assisted a very, very prominent Forbes list billionaire make his next investment. And when I was done with that, I exited that gig and I came back to South Africa, which is where I am right now, this time Cape Town. And I set up my now company, Black Fox, on South African soil, which is an epic return, having done quite a number of years outside of my country. And I'm just inspired by the power of data and inspired by the power of digital solutions and what it can do for people and what it can make possible. even when I was in my Microsoft, when I still worked at Microsoft under the public sector portfolio, the best job that I did was the job where I physically saw for myself what technology could do for bringing basic sanitation services, basic utilities, water, lights to people all across the country. It's an interesting demographic what we have here. It's an interesting split of infrastructure. We have a vast portion of the country that is still without proper sanitation. You'd never believe that, but it is the case. And so I was deeply committed to one goal, and that is we've got to bring water to these people. We've got to bring sanitation to these people. And how can technology enable that? And it was interesting. I was led truly by that vision, and it enabled fantastic numbers to just come in. It's almost like the mathematics doesn't make sense. Just like Avis is 39 years old, and yet she's got more than 40 years experience. The truth is that the mathematics just doesn't add up. Like, I was so committed to just getting water into taps, and yet we just were inundated with business in the back of that. It just worked wonderfully. And I carry that same sense of strategic help into my now company, to where I still work with Microsoft, still work with SAP, still work with the tech vendors, and we help them take their solutions to market. And we still are led by a vision that is bigger than ourselves.
Wow.
So that's the story. It took half this interview. Avis, I've saved us a lot of hard work by talking way too much.
I like it. I think we should continue this theme because I have so many questions for you. We must stay connected.
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
I like each of your story. You have an interesting and inspiring story. It's great to hear from each of you. And I believe the audience and myself, we are all taking note of some of the things that you are sharing. Okay. So I want to find out, looking at the current image of AI and then new technologies, how can businesses adapt those technologies to drive innovation and competitive advantage?
Well, this technology and all the technologies that we both have been engaged in over the decades, I think the underlying premise is you've got to know your business. You've got to understand what problems need solving, right? Where are the pain points? What are your goals? What are you trying to achieve? And then, if you start there and really do some foundational work on what can this new technology really help you to do better, faster, cheaper, then that's the way to start. Unfortunately, too many people go to the technology, the new shiny thing, in this case, AI or IoT or whatever it is, and they just start wanting to use it and not taking the time to really understand the applications for their own business, right? Because you're going to have to set some really clear objectives. What do you want to achieve with this new technology, with this AI? What are you trying? Do you still have manual tasks that need automating? Are you trying to, therefore, increase efficiency and productivity? Are you trying to improve your customer experience, or drive better marketing and sales results? So understanding, and then you can't do it all, because as we know in the technology and consulting world, you can't boil the ocean. So you really have to step your way through it. And the best way to start is to really understand your business. When is the last time you mapped your processes? Who's doing what, and how are they interdependent? And where are the manual tasks within? Is there duplicity and duplication that can be stripped away? We've recently gone through that process again at TCGI, so that we are all not doing the same types of things. We may be supportive, but we're also backing each other up as much as possible, so that there's no letdown should there be any change in either attrition or whatever. And so really getting back to the grassroots of understanding your business and making sure you've got the right people in the right seats, and you understand where you can make some improvements. And then you go and identify the technology that's going to help you achieve those goals.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you, Avis. Could you share yours as well?
Yeah, so I definitely concur. I see too many examples. I mean, I work with a number of boards, and I find that, in the panic of FOMO, people are often issuing an instruction figure out this AI thing and see how we can be capitalizing on this whole AI wave.
Yeah.
And so then you have the management layer scrambling and saying, just give me any AI because I need to report up the line that I've got at least a project going, so that it doesn't look like I'm not doing my job. And I guess that's how it's going to be with new technology. There's always going to be that shock factor that pushes people into action without good thinking. But there's no more important question than the question that Avis asked, and that is, what problem are you trying to solve? And you have to work backwards from that problem, because there's any God's quantity of technologies right now that you could use to solve, the myriad of problems that businesses face. You don't necessarily have to just go, AI is the answer, what's the question, You have to be a little bit more precise. You have to go and say, what exactly am I trying to solve? If you have a problem that requires some burden of decision making to move away from your human workforce and to be systemized, some element of soft decision making, like something as simple as a workflow that red flags emails that might be customer complaint emails, and you want a system where some of that operational burden of discerning good from bad, that agency, you want to move some of that agency away from a human agent into the hands of a computerized agent, then in that instance, absolutely, an AI workflow would be relevant to that particular problem. So if you're trying to relieve decision-making burden, then AI is absolutely a valid technology stack to pursue. I mean, it's interesting. People get into the data discussion as well, and they go with, there's no AI without data, so start with data. And now I see all sorts of projects being launched where people are just going data, data, data. But I still feel the basic question needs to be addressed. Is there some aspect of decision making that you want to move away from people, and why? What problem are you trying to solve by it living in the hands of people today? Is it that their decisions are ineffective? Is it unfair? Is it inconsistent? Is it unreliable? You really have to nail down why you're moving, why you're migrating some aspect of decision making away from people. I mean, things like chatbots, the use case is clear because you want to have someone available to converse on a 24-hour basis. So it's more availability. So the problem you're trying to solve is trying to solve availability. You don't want to lose the pair of eyes that fall on your website, and you want to convert as much as you can. So in that use case, there's a clear need to invest. But in a lot of instances, that use case is not really isolated and cleaned up to make for a valid case for investment.
I totally agree. I mean, that the data-driven decisions is really, I think, one of the main and primary applications for leveraging the technology like AI. And as you mentioned, personalizing the customer experience, right? So having that chatbot, and this is not new. We've been using AI for years. Chatbots and virtual assistants, they've all been around for a long time, but that can help you personalize a customer experience, because I used to just try and find a phone number. Let me just talk to somebody, right? But now I've moved away from that, and I will start a chat. And usually I can get whatever situation I'm coming to you for resolved with that chatbot. So it's a more effective use of my time, which is my greatest asset, right? So it helps on that customer experience as well.
Okay, thank you very much. So my next question was to even ask how you are implementing it in your business, but I think obviously you just give some tips of it. I don't know if you have more to add to it, and then
I'll just add one more. So we're in the procurement space. We help large buying organizations optimize how they spend their annual budgets. Usually there's way too many suppliers that they're managing, which is wasteful and the time consuming. And, when there's non-strategic purchasing, which happens all day, every day, then there's this proliferation of suppliers and whatever methods being used to procure those products and services. And so for us, we use in the procurement industry, we use AI for vendor selection. Like, we have a request from a customer, we know what they need, and we put that into our AI-based platform, and it will recommend the suppliers that are in our supply chain. It will then send them that request, and ask them to just give us a price quote on it. These are the non-strategic, maybe smaller purchases where we'll leverage this. And then their responses, once they submit it, goes back into the platform, it's stack ranked, and then an award decision is recommended. And the system can just go ahead and make that award and issue a PO and just go through the process. But I still stop it there for some human intervention. And I know we'll talk about ethics later, but there's some decision points that still need a human intervention. So if we're trying to manage to 10, 12, 15 objectives for our customer, not just lowest price, then that decision at that point may be we won't select the lowest price vendor because we may have to wait 6 months to get the product. Or there's a diverse supplier, a Black-owned supplier that is within a negligible differential of price. And that's one of the objectives of the customer. Well, then we're going to make that decision based on human reasoning. So we're not just throwing everything over the wall and say, you do it all AI, but there's some points in that decisioning process where my human beings will actually make that decision.
All right, thank you very much, Avis. KG, do you have any addition to it? How you are implementing AI in your business?
I mean, for us, we're, like I think similar to Avis, we work with clients. And in my instance, I work on the sales side, on the seller side. So I work with companies that are offering AI solutions to the market, and I help them take their solutions to a wider market and to do a better job of taking their solutions to market. So I've got a great number of examples of how businesses are using AI and the use cases. But as for ourselves, I would say we're fairly limited in our use in that we use, basic generative AI. We have a few workflows of our own, but that's really the extent of it.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Avis. Thank you very much. I think I have two more questions. That one has to be, you being a Black business owner, what are some of the challenges that you face, and how do you think other Black business owners can also overcome them as they face them?
Kirill, you want to go first on this one?
No, Avis, ladies first.
Don't complain, then later. Okay. Oh my gosh, I've been in Black business for 40 years, so all kinds of barriers have presented themselves to me over the years. And I think principally is this lack of access to funding. Now, people will say there's so much money out there in the marketplace. Yeah, well, where is it, right? Even you go to the banks initially and they say, well, you should go to your friends and family. I'm like, you don't understand. Not my friends or my family. I'm one of 6 kids growing up in small New York City apartments with blue collar parents. There's no money there. So now what do you got, right? So there's that funding and investment barrier for underrepresented founders like myself, because we're not in those networks, which is another barrier, to have access to those resources where the capital resides. So I will never forget this because it really burned a hole in my soul at the time. Remember the .com boom before the bust, but the boom where everybody was getting money. They were writing ideas on the back of a napkin at the bar and getting millions of dollars. They had no customers, no company, no track record, no nothing. But because they had an idea, they had access to the funders, they were getting funded based on a simple idea that wasn't even fully baked. That's why the bust happened, because those ideas were just that, back of the napkin musings, right? So it really annoyed me that I had worked so hard. I had built a company. We've always been a growing company. And yet and still, because I was not at that country club or whatever, I did not have access to the capital that could have helped me really grow our business over the years and not have to continually depend on debt all the time, and some high price debt during different periods, or doing without, or not being able to add the people, the team members that I need, because we didn't have the revenue to support it. I often joke that we were named the third fastest growing women-owned company in the country in 2017, and then in 2024 we were back on the fastest 50 women growing companies at number 13, and I'm like, and I've never had any money. Imagine what I could have done with some real capital. And so funding and investment for these technology investments and lack of access to where that funding resides are the biggest barriers that I've faced over the years. Mm-hmm.
Well done. Well done.
Yeah, well done, Avis. That's a fantastic track record, and I hope you show off about this a lot. I'm probably going to get to know you a little bit more, and I'm going to help you show off if you aren't showing off enough.
Thank you.
Yeah. So from my side, I can say that with me it was quite a different game, because I wasn't even, like, just in terms of my networks, my background, my upbringing, I wasn't even in the tier to be even considered as a player in the game. I was a non-existent. Well, I think there's something called a non-player character, right? I was one of those. If you could only understand, if I dial back all the way back then when I first got into my career, I had nothing. I mean, in fact, my colleagues and I, there's a woman I know who's the CEO of a prominent brand here, and she and I joke all the time, and we reflect, we look backwards now, and we look at how no one gave us a guidebook. We didn't have the know-how because we didn't come from the system. So we had to learn the system from scratch. It's the most phenomenal thing. It's like, even if you're just a corporate employee, if you have parents or uncles or aunts that come from that background, you know what that game is. You know what you're expecting. There's some tips and tricks along the way. And it was a complete unknown. It was like taking a dive off a plane into the great unknown, and we just didn't know where we were going to land.
Right.
And I can say with certainty that I wouldn't be an entrepreneur today had it not been for my stint at Microsoft. Because my stint at Microsoft gave me some level of credibility. It put me into a band where I would be heard, that my voice mattered. I was part of a group, I was part of a community where I was suddenly taken seriously.
Yeah.
And that network, I was at Microsoft for many years. I only became an entrepreneur in my mid-30s. And unfortunately, when I look back, I go, I mean, I'm not at all going to make the case that you can't be an entrepreneur younger than that, based on, background, all of that. But for me, in terms of my personal journey, I don't see how I would have cracked this game had I not done a decent stint in corporate, because
Right.
that's what gave me my networks. That's what gave me the door openers. That's what gave me the opportunity to get on the phone with people that would otherwise never have taken me seriously. So it's an interesting one, because I love being an entrepreneur as much as I hate it from time to time.
Yeah, there's that.
Yeah,
Say
that's the
less.
only way to describe it, right? And I do love it, and I would not have had this luxury, I don't think, had I just entered the game of, with the blank canvas. I don't see how I would have gotten this right,
Right.
And I just want to say that, one last thing on this point, that look at Avis, look at me, we're still here, we're still fighting, we're still making the game work. So even if you are from a background that might not always make sense, it's always possible, right?
Mhm.
And we're still here, and we're still going, and we're still gonna be going. And the thing is that don't ever let it be said, or don't let it be thought, that just because it's a bit hard right now, that you shouldn't do it. And I think that that's the thing. It's like, yes, it's harder for people of some background or specific backgrounds. It is harder, and it would be silly not to acknowledge that, but at the end of the day, it is absolutely possible, and it takes a little bit of extra muscle. It takes a little bit of extra hopping, skipping, and jumping, but you eventually, you make it. So keep going on that track, and don't let anyone make you believe that you can't do something. And I know it's sounding so trite and so cliched what I'm saying, but I guess I'm just going back into that headspace of my own past, and I'm going, there were so many opportunities for me to believe that I'm actually not going to be able to pay the payroll of a whole bunch of people. I just would never have dreamed, I would not have dreamed that was possible, or that significant brands that are represented by specific demographics, that they would ever take me seriously. I would never have imagined that in my background,
Right.
But here we are.
Here we are. And it didn't just get hard. Like I said, think about all that's happened over the last 40 years. We've had major disruptions. This particular company, and by the way, I'm a serial entrepreneur, but this one I launched in January of 2008, when I acquired a spinoff from Bank of America, just in time for the greatest economic recession of all time. Who knew that was coming? Who knew that was coming? And then, the 9/11 attacks, where I lost 30% of my business that day because I supported Merrill Lynch and American Express, and others right down in the World Financial Center. Or the pandemic that shut the world down for 3-4 years. And when Wall Street gets a cut, we bleed, we hemorrhage. So it's the impact of these major catastrophic events have such a huge detrimental effect for companies like us who are under-resourced and undercapitalized, right? Who would have thought the world would have shut down? And it wasn't just for that year. For us, it's been for 4 years, trying to return to some sense of normalcy. So it hasn't just gotten hard. Right now, it's crazy right now. I'm not going there, but it's just the attacks are from within now. So that's what's different. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Alvis. Thank you very much, EG. I think our time is up, but then I just want to take your last words from you. If you have anything to share with the audience, being Black people out there, business owners, and also if you know of any AI trends that you feel they should watch out for as founders of their various businesses, you can share with us.
Yeah, I think that to most folks who are not in the business of technology, when they hear AI, they just automatically think of ChatGPT and things like those tools like that. But I want you to think a little broader than that, right? There's open source AI, yes, but it's how you customize it and build and fine tune your own AI models by feeding it information about what you do and how you do it and what you bring to the marketplace that's going to perform a lot better and drive a lot faster innovation for you. So, feed your open AI, whichever one you use, feed it information about yourself, your company, your customers, and then use it for real-time decision making, right? It really is so helpful for that. Another thing I think about is predictive analytics that are powered by AI. Being able to predict trends, data is so valuable. So we collect a lot of data in our business, whether it's what our customers are buying from us technology-wise, or how they're spending their budgets. And so what we're always looking to do is how can we transform that data into insights that'll be helpful and more valuable to our customers. And so you can look at personalizing that customer experience, as I've mentioned before, and prioritizing these emerging trends because they're not going away. So how can you best take a look at what's out there today? How can you personalize it for your benefit and for the benefit of your customers?
Thank you very much, Alvis.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go very quickly because I can see that there's a bit of pressure to end off and introduce the next speakers. So, folks, from my side, I would say for businesses, don't be knee-jerk in your selection of technology, specifically AI technology. There's no need to just rush too much and make a decision that might cost you in the longer term. Don't dive into a standalone application. Think about your strategy. Think about your platform strategy. You could buy a whole host of tiny little AI apps and give user rights to all sorts of people in the organization. And what's happening is that those tiny apps are drawing from only a handful of parent AI technologies, and they have an API into those technologies. So eventually your company is going to have to be buying a lot of API calls, because the price of those API calls is going to go up, given the fact that we have such a narrow pool of parent AI technologies. So it's a very unwise thing to just be sporadic in your choices when it comes to your business. Try to figure out what problem you're trying to solve, and then invest in a platform technology that has AI built in from the ground up. So you're not just going ahead and buying a whole bunch of API calls unknowingly. And that's my advice to a business. To an individual, if you're out there, if you're listening to this as an individual, I would say look for every possible AI that you could exploit today in your ordinary course of day-to-day, your business, your career, and just have fun with it and use it as an opportunity to help you get things done that you ordinarily couldn't possibly do, and use it as an opportunity to really springboard yourself, so that overall in your job and your career, you get to have a lot more fun, and you get to bring a lot more dynamic energy and creativity and flair and just bring all those cool things into your job, and get AI as much as possible to do things that you really just don't like doing. And that's why I say just go ahead and have fun. Try to have fun as much as you can.
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you very much. I'm giving lots of words. I didn't know what to say anymore. Thank you very much. We've come up to the end of our panel session, and I'll hand over to Stanel. Thank you, Alvis. Thank you, KG.
My pleasure. So nice meeting you both, KG. We will connect.
I'll find you on LinkedIn, Avis.
Okay.
Yeah, I almost asked for your LinkedIn.
I'm easy to find. I'm easy to find. Avis Yates Rivers or everywhere. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'm Kirushan Govender, LinkedIn, kirushan.com on my personal website. So you guys can reach out to me as well.
Yes.
All right.
Awesome.
Great to have you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Hand over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Nii. Thank you, Avis. Thank you, Christian. That was the first panel of the day, navigating the intersection of innovation, technology, and AI for business growth. And we had Christian Governor, who's an AI author, also a chief executive officer and founder of Blackfox, as well as Avis Yates Rivers, who is the founder and CEO of Technology Concepts Group International. And it was a real amazing discussion. If you're following, there's lots of insights shared as well. So we look forward to engaging them further. We'll now transition to our next panel shortly. It's an amazing panel, and before we go there, we'll just take a short break to introduce our speakers as well. Okay. Okay, welcome back. The next panel is titled The Corporate Innovation Ecosystem of the Future.
Can you guys hear me? Because I can't hear anything at all. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
You can?
Yes.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
I'm not sure
So do you want
why.
to check your devices?
I can see you guys. I just can't hear anything at all.
We can actually hear you quite clearly. So maybe you might want to just hop off and reconnect and see if it's better that way.
Okay, it works. It works now. So I had actually connected to another screen, and I guess the HDMI was messing up with the volume. But I just unplugged that, and I can hear you guys. So it's wonderful to be here.
All right, great. So welcome to Tosin and TK for this panel on corporate innovation, and it's a real pleasure to have you on. I'll have you kickstart this by introducing yourself and telling us your unique path to building your successful ventures. If you could share your journey with us, that would do quite well. I'll start with you, Tosin.
Hi everyone, my name is Oluwatosi Ajayi, known by Tosi Tomos. I am a first generation Nigerian American, and I currently work as a senior policy and research analyst at Cannabis NYC, which is a interagency hub located within the New York City government. We work with the Department of Small Business Services. I came into this role really in several different ways. I saw firsthand how policies shape communities depending on your zip code or your neighborhood is a lot of times tied to the resources that you have. And by way of my experience, it inspired me to advocate for economic equity as well as public health policy reform. In my role at Cannabis NYC, I support businesses in navigating regulatory challenges, securing resources, and advocating for equitable policies in the cannabis space. I was first introduced to cannabis through just advocacy, then through entrepreneurship, starting my first my CBD wellness company in 2017, noticing that there was a lack of Black and Brown businesses in the legal industry. And then as I went on to earn my MPA from NYU Wagner, I founded NYU Cannapolicy, which is a graduate student group promoting responsible cannabis legalization through education and advocacy. My education background also includes a public health degree from Rutgers University. So I'm able to bridge policy, economic development, and public health together, all using my lived experiences to push forth for a thriving, equitable, and sustainable cannabis industry. So that's a little bit about me. Nice to meet you all, and thank you for allowing me to join this summit. I'm really excited to be here.
Awesome. I don't know if I can follow that, but I'm just like you, Tosin. I'm also Nigerian American. I also live in New York City. So funny. For me, entrepreneurship had always been, something I was fascinated by. I studied biomedical engineering, even though I haven't done much in that space in a long time. But after graduation, I did a lot of work in policy focused on disconnected and what we call at-risk youth, or what I call untapped communities. And that led to the founding of a nonprofit focused on that demographic, and then actually the first diversity-focused accelerator in New York City at the time, called Startup 52. Our mission then was to provide equitable access to resources, to network, to capital for founders from untapped communities. Led to politics, and then I ended up at Visa, leading both strategy and policy for Visa Crypto up until a little over a year ago when I left to found something else, which we're currently working on. Fintech, focused on Africa as well. So for me, entrepreneurship has always been about the opportunity that I feel like it creates in untapped communities. And I tend to prefer the use of the word untapped as opposed to marginalized or underrepresented or underserved, because I feel like a lot of our communities have a lot of potential. And most times it's just the lack of access to those opportunities that we need to create, or rather is a problem, right? So instead of focusing on the negatives, I tend to prefer to use words that encompass empowerment, right? That talks more about the potential that needs to be explored as opposed to the problems. So that's why I tend to use the word untapped. So I'm definitely happy to be here, known Christine and Einstein for a long time, have collaborated with them in so many endeavors, and happy to contribute the little that I can in empowering our communities. Tosin, is definitely great to meet you. Hopefully someday our paths will cross in New York. Stan, great to meet you as well.
Great, great. Thank you both for coming us today. And we see in today's rapidly evolving business landscape where corporations are having to redefine innovation with so many strategies. What strategies have you noticed that organizations are using to stay ahead of the curve? I'll start with you. I'll go back to you, Tosi.
Okay, yes. Well, cannabis is a very exciting and interesting industry that rapidly evolves. I feel like every day there is something new coming out in this industry. I'm gonna focus on United States and actually even zero in on New York. Even though cannabis has been deemed a green industry, even in New York, we just recently surpassed $1 billion in cannabis retail sales since legalization. And the first stores opened at the end of 2023. Part of the success within the New York cannabis industry is how the policies and the law, which I refer to as the MRTA, stands for the Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act, have put safeguards in to protect small business markets while also ensuring that there is diversity amongst the size of corporations that can enter the market. What they've done is one thing very proud of this is 50% of licenses are designated to social and economic equity applicants. I do really like Chike's language, though, about untapped potential, because when we think about social and economic equity, we're speaking about, plainly said, minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, distressed farmers, service-disabled veterans, and one that I like to place a lot of attention on, communities disproportionately impacted. The law that passed was not just about retail sales, but it was also about social justice, equity, and ensuring that we develop a fair and responsible cannabis industry. So with that being said, there's limits on how many licenses one person can have to ensure that we have a diverse market made up of small business entities. There's also designations within the law that separate who can own a license on the supply side of the supply chain or the demand side. So we refer to that as a two-tiered market. And that is a way to push back on larger companies, which we refer to as registered organizations. These are registered organizations are essentially kind of the big players that entered the cannabis industry when it was just medical, before we legalized it for adult use, anyone who's over 21. And it's set up in a way so that we have diversity within the supply chain, that it isn't just well-resourced companies that only have the access to this growing industry. In on top of that, one thing that I always like to highlight as something that I think is really innovative within the New York cannabis market is a micro business license. So I just spoke about the larger companies who were operating in the medical cannabis industry, who were able to cultivate and process cannabis products as well as sell cannabis products in the medical space. When we're talking about the adult use market, again, expanding beyond just medical cannabis patients, the micro business license is a license type that allows small businesses to be vertically integrated, but you can't have more than 10 employees. That's something that's only available to smaller businesses. Again, if you're a larger company, you have to decide which side of the market you're going to operate on. In addition to that, there was also some safeguards that were put in, special licensing fees, because in order to create a robust competitive market with small and big players, there were measures that essentially prevented the larger companies from entering the market for 2 years after the first licenses were available to smaller companies. So that's just a little bit about kind of the different ways in which strategies that we're seeing in the cannabis business landscape to provide pathways for small business markets to thrive as state programs really rely on them, while also still making way for corporations to enter the market, but doing it in a socially responsible way. So that was a lot, but yes.
All right. Thank you for sharing. How about you, Chike?
So just to piggyback on what Tosin has said, there's so many ways corporations, in my opinion, at least, and in fact, this conversation is extremely important, partly because of what's going on in the U.S. and some of the ways we are rolling back some of what I think are important strategies to enhance corporate innovation. I always like to come from a diversity perspective and why that's extremely important. The power that lies within diversity is one that allows you to, in my opinion, minimize some of the blind spots that corporations usually have. So when you're intentional about making sure you're bringing in other people or creating opportunities for diverse groups to come in, one, you expand your market capability, right? So if you have representation, it's one thing to say, hey, this marketing, whatever you have out is going to exclude certain people or will offend certain people, right? So, and usually many corporations sometimes don't understand the importance of having that representation and how it helps to enhance the innovation that pushes them forward, right? So when you have people who can represent people who are not who are ability challenged, right? Then when you're designing products, you automatically have representation that can say, hey, as you're building this building or whatever, it's important to remember that there are people that would need a little bit more help to access this building. I hope you're getting what I'm saying. And this applies in products. Like even when I was at Visa, when we look at product, it's important to think about who our primary user would be, but beyond the primary, the secondary, the tertiary, all of that. And how do we make sure that the service or the product that we are trying to roll out, is applicable or it's relevant, to all of them. So part of what innovation, just like Tosin was talking about, right? So even with the cannabis, if you just let big corporations go ahead and do what they do, then you lock out a lot of communities from accessing, either because of capital or because of when government or corporations are intentional in making sure that they provide some of those resources, or they minimize the challenges to the access required, then you broaden the scope of people who can join. Does that kind of?
Yeah, I believe it does. And some of these strategies, the reason why we discussed it, to see the diverse ways, and Tosin highlighted a few of these, like there's not just one way of having to get solution to things, but trying different things to be able to meet the needs of various players or stakeholders within an industry. So it's good that you could share that as well. I want us to delve into sustainability. It's becoming a key pillar within the corporate innovation space, and I want to discuss how businesses can effectively integrate sustainable practices while maintaining competitiveness and profitability. Oh,
Would you like me to take
I'll,
that
I'll
one?
start with.
How about we let Tosin take that?
I'm happy to, however we want to do it, but I'll jump in quickly. I think when I think about sustainability, I think about sustainability in regards to reducing resources, that being efficient with the use of resources, reducing costs, as well as sustainability from a ESG metric standpoint. So that's like environmental, social, and governance metrics. I know that, again, I'm focusing a lot on cannabis, but cannabis in New York, there have been many measures that have integrated sustainability into their supply chain, labor practices, and product design. So there are, cannabis has the potential to have a large carbon footprint, if not operated in a way that thinks about the environment, how much energy you're using, how much water you're using, what type of packaging are you using for the cannabis? Is it something that can be recyclable, or is it plastic? A lot of these wasteful ways that people can operate have been actually outlawed with compliance. Something else that I think about too, in regards to staying competitive but sustainable, is taking advantage of a lot of free business resources. There are a lot. I mean, I work within the New York City Department of Small Business Services, where we have our business solution centers. There are 7 cannabis-focused account managers who work for the city, who can provide support with business planning, helping you find apply for licenses, helping you to apply for funding. There's other services within the Department of Small Business Services that allow you to navigate what it takes to secure a lease for where you want to operate your store, or operate your facility. And these are all free. So when you kind of add up the cost of taking advantage of free resources, I know there's free work resources in every industry. I mean, this is one today, where people can join for free and kind of hear from all these different experts. And then something else I will just kind of champion is ancillary business opportunities within the cannabis industry. So those are non-plant touching businesses. So think about tech, logistics, packaging. Those are all businesses that you can operate within cannabis, but you do not have to physically touch the plant. And that's so important because cannabis is still federally illegal within the United States. So there are certain essentially like tax implications that you don't, or tax benefits that you don't qualify for because you're operating a substance that is federally illegal. State programs allow for licensing to happen, even in contrast to the federal illegality of it. But if you take away, you're actually touching the cannabis plant, you don't actually have to deal with those compliance or in the same way as if you were in a business that was working directly with the cannabis plant. So being creative and thinking through ways in which you can, increase your revenue, but doing it in ways that reduce costs and also, again, speak to the environmental sustainability as well.
So, I mean, the only thing I'm going to add to that is, companies are increasingly focusing on sustainability and social impact as part of the key drivers for their innovation. I mean, we all talk about eco-friendly products now, the need to reduce the carbon footprints. Climate change is becoming, not becoming, is an extremely important topic today, right? Because we have to be able to preserve our planet, right? The companies are increasingly focusing on, the importance of sustainability and social change as part of their corporate innovation strategies in order to survive tomorrow, right? So if you, for instance, set up a business in Niger Delta, Nigeria, for instance, and you're not concerned about the impact of, climate change, whether it's from oil spillage or, the populace there who are suffering from the damages from those things, then you are also setting yourself up for failure, right? So incorporating some of those strategies are important for longevity of businesses as well. So.
Okay, great. Thank you. And finally, I want to pick your thoughts on what you believe are the emerging trends in technology and policy that businesses can prepare for within the, say, next 5 years to be able to stay innovative and resilient.
You want me to jump into that one? I can start with that. So, I mean, the two main technologies that we all are sort of excited about, some people very actively love them, some others very actively hate them. Artificial intelligence, of course, and blockchain technologies. And as we know, even with Gen AI, a lot of corporations are incorporating these. Some are going even further than that, like there's quantum computing now. There are newer technologies. Some are exploring AR and VR. And part of the reason why these things are important is as we move into a future that becomes very competitive, right? They'll be very, very automated. For companies to stay ahead, part of the questions they're asking themselves is how do we leverage these technologies, right? In the finance banking system, how do we adopt blockchain technologies to make our products or to make our services more transparent, to increase trust from the users? So being aware of the importance of these emerging technologies is extremely important, right? But the other thing we also have to pay attention to is the policies that will regulate these technologies. You can't talk about AI and not talk about ethical AI, right? When we talk about singularity and all of the negative impacts of AI, or that AI will have, especially on emerging markets, places like Africa, right? You start to talk about the importance of having guardrails that can preserve or value humanity as we explore some of these technologies. Just like you can't talk about crypto and not talk about KYC, know your customers, or AML, anti-money laundering policies, right? To make sure that as you leverage these technologies, that you're protecting humanity, right? The people who use it, technologies in health, or even how some of these other ones now, artificial intelligence, we're talking about AGI, all of that, how they will affect a bunch of sectors in our lives, right? Religion, healthcare, education. Some you will have, for those of us who use, social media, you get all these. Someone will say, why do I need to study for 8 hours when ChatGPT can do it for me, right? So you even in real time, you see how some of these new or emerging technologies are changing our lives, right? But as corporations, as we invest and delve into exploring more to understand these technologies, is also important to make sure that we're paying attention to the human aspects of the human impacts of these technologies. And that's where policies come into play, and the need for governments to make sure that they stay on top of those things as well. Tosin?
Yeah, I really appreciate those comments about, you know, the importance of policy as we continue to see the rapid growth of AI and just, those resources impact the global, global footprint. I will say though that, keeping that in mind, AI is very helpful in operational efficiency. I mean, the thing about AI is that, you can delegate tasks that, don't require as much, simple menial tasks to AI that would essentially increase your output and efficiency, as long as there's a human behind it who's directing it, right? I will also kind of speak to another trend that I'm noticing, which is just automation in regulated industries. I see that continuing to grow. Thinking about cannabis, there is a whole, you see often seed to sale tracking systems implemented, which is something where every single detail from when the seed is purchased to when it goes out to market is tracked in a particular system. And that, of course, helps with protecting against, recalls, or, knowing how to source where issues come from, but also keeping an eye on how much things cost within the different areas of the supply chain. I anticipate that we'll continue to see this type of automation in regulated industries. And the more you could kind of create your systems from inception to be automated, the less catching up that you have to do, or adjusting that you have to do. And then, the last thing I wanted to say is that, there definitely seems to be a trend today about kind of pulling back a lot of DEI, funding opportunities and things of that sort. But we understand how important it is to still have diverse companies. And this is why, if you own a company or you're in a leadership position in the company, you can still push for recruitment from diverse talent pools. You can still work to engage, untapped potential in, state universities or community colleges, or some of those kind of local areas where, perhaps some of the larger corporations who are not prioritizing DEI would be recruiting from. You kind of have the power to do that, because ultimately that's going to help foster, the industries or just success that we're looking to see, So I think, those are some of my thoughts around some of the emerging trends. And again, just to close out, piggybacking on Chike's point, policy matters. Regulations shape market dynamics. Policies must promote fairness, economic development. Within the case of cannabis, criminal justice reform, we didn't really speak too much about that, but there is a legacy of cannabis prohibition that ended a lot of people in jail, and we're trying to figure out ways in which we could use policy to create opportunities for as many diverse groups as possible. So yeah, that's it.
So can I just add to what you talked about in terms of DEI? So when I've had these conversations, I tell people I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding of the importance of DEI, right? I think the biggest problem America has today is really about inclusion, right? Because of the lack of understanding of what diversity means or equity means, we sort of lump them all together, right? So I tell people, a team of 4 Black men is not a diverse group. They're just a group of 4 Black men, right? However, the importance of what diversity does in itself is it brings diverse backgrounds to the conversation that enhances the quality of solutions that you actually get, right? So diversity is extremely important, period. Now, on the equity side, the equity is important because we know that certain communities have been disadvantaged in terms of access to capital or access to resources to help them thrive. So, creating that channel or that pipeline to enable those communities to catch up in certain areas is just as important. I don't see anything wrong with it. Where we have a confusion is with the word inclusion, in my opinion, where there is this misconception that what inclusion has done is deprived people who were normally there from opportunities that they normally have held, right? And I think that's where we need to push back on, right? So what inclusion does is actually enhance the solutions or the benefits of diversity in communities, in corporations, in groups or startups, capital, all of that. So yes, while the US is actively and very aggressively fighting back or pushing back on what they think is access to communities that have normally been less in success of this company or for the growth, economic growth, whatever of, our communities, these things are important, and use facts and numbers to defend them instead of, oh, but we need it because of 400 years of slavery and all that. The money would always speak, right? Green would always speak faster and quicker than, what the color of our skin would do. So that's the conversation that I'm beginning to have with people, especially our people in positions, just like Tosin talked about, that still allow them the opportunity to recruit people who look like us or other people that may not have had access, So when we push back or when we start to become complicit with some of the things, having the right narrative to push back on why these things are important, whether they are being taken off of websites or whatever by companies. In the reality of it, it's important that we are daily fighting back to ensure that we are one creating those opportunities, but also talking about the impact on the bottom line of corporations as they pursue innovations and growth.
Amazing. And thank you both so much, Chike, Tosin. It was really amazing having you on, sharing your thought leadership with us. And we will hope to engage you further as well, and wishing you all the best in your endeavors as well. We are grateful for your time today and really appreciate you sharing your thought leadership with us. It was great hearing from you today. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Sure.
Thank you so much. And I just wanted to make a little note. If you do want to tap into some of the resources at Cannabis NYC, you can visit nyc.gov/cannabis. So I hope that's helpful. Thank you so much again for this opportunity.
Same here.
Okay. Thank you.
Take care now.
So that was our second panel for the day, and we are thankful for both of our speakers, Chike and Tosin. Chike is the founder and executive director at Startup 52, and we also had Tosin Ajayi, who is a senior policy and research analyst at Cannabis NYC, and we are thankful for their time with us today. It was a real pleasure having them on, for them sharing their thoughts on the corporate innovation ecosystem of the future, including diversity and inclusion. It's been an amazing time with the speakers we had lined up for today. We are thankful to all our speakers that came on for the session today, from our keynote speaker in the person of Dr. Lisa Coleman from other university. Then we had a first panel also joining us that talked about the navigating in the intersection of innovation, technology, and AI for business growth, where we heard from Persian Governor Avis Yates as well, and then moderated by colleague Ni Amarov. So thankful for all our speakers for today. It's been another amazing session of the Afrofuture Summit, and thank you for joining us for this fifth annual edition. We look forward to engaging you much further in the future as we discuss the topics relating to inclusion, diversity, sustainability, innovation, and resilience within the Afro community and people of color. I do hope you enjoyed the session today, and we hoping to get more questions, but you can still engage us via our websites and from the GSE website at www.globalstartupecosystem.com to engage further. We're thankful for your time today, and we look forward to further engagement with you as well. Thank you all so much, and do enjoy the rest of your day. It's been me, Stanley Tete, your host for the session today.
Hello. Welcome, everyone, to the Afrofuture Summit Awards Gala. Really an honor and pleasure to kick this off.
And you're going to be the people who are going to be here the day after tomorrow. So all of us must continue to bring good into the world and let no good be lost. God bless you all.
My name is Kristen Tim. I'm the founder and CEO of Global Startup Ecosystem and the chair of the Afrofuture Summit, and thank you so much for being here. I can't begin to tell you how amazing these influences are that we're about to kick off and honor.
I want us all to put our heart into all that we do. Let's try and drive the conversation about Black history and into the Black future. Let's make sure our diaspora connect back to the continent, and let's really put our heart into actually building a better future for all of us. Thank you all very much for coming here today. Let's have a great night of networking and get to know each other on a much deeper level.
The way that I think about Afrofuturism is the world in which Blackness is returned to greatness at its full value.
Of the president, but I just want to say how pleased I am that you've given us this platform.
I am working to ensure that we build smart futures and flourishing worlds for all humanity.
For being a part of the Afrofuture Summit Awards Gala 2023.